Well, there's been a lot of discussion about the privacy of and how private are you with Windows 10. And I think that comes about due to the fact that there is a lot of features within Windows 10 that wants to know something about you in order for it to function. And probably one of the biggest ones that everyone is concerned about is a person called Cortana. So let's ask Cortana. Cortana?
It's currently 64 and sunny.
Thank you. So how does she know that? The reason why she knows that because she knows your location. And when you first installed Windows 10, you were asked a series of questions, and you probably rushed through those and didn't bother to look at what you were actually checking. And particularly if you use the express settings. So you made yourself open to divulge which some people might consider personal information. Now, in order for Cortana to work properly, she really does need to know something about you. She needs to know your location. She needs to know what your likes and dislikes are. And over a period of time, as you use her, she gathers information about your personal habits. Now, if you do not want that to happen, and you do not want Cortana to be involved in your personal life, you can shut it off. And it's fairly simple to do. Is that is you go to settings, and where it says Cortana, Cortana can give you suggestions, ideas, reminders, alerts, and more. If you turn that off, Cortana is no longer in your life. And then it just only becomes a search engine. And you no longer have to be concerned about whether or not she is gathering information or learning about you in that manner. Now, that's just one of the privacy settings that you can turn off, but that's the one that's pretty major for a lot of people. But going to the Start button and going to Settings, and then going over to where it says Privacy, this is where you can then go in and make additional changes. So to begin with, under General, change privacy options. Let apps use my advertising ID for experience across the apps. Turning this off will reset your ID. Turn on Smart Screen Filter to check web content URLs that Windows Store apps use. So here, if you turn that off, then that no longer functions. In other words, the web content, those apps that are in the web store that use your personal information, such as, let me think of one. Well, say for instance you have Netflix. Netflix will give you suggestions of what movies that you like based on the preferences that you have used in the past. If you no longer want that to occur, then this filter right here will prevent that from occurring. If you don't want Microsoft to know information on how you write to help improve typing and writing in the future, as you are aware that in Edge, it has what's referred to as an inking capability. In other words, you can go into Edge and you can annotate. Hopefully it's going to come up. Edge has really been slow today. I'm not sure what's going on with it. But if you have a tablet and you use a stylus to annotate on that tablet, then Microsoft is taking or analyzing how you write to improve the recognition, letter recognition of the letters that you write. So if you make an A kind of slanted or so forth, then they're using that to create algorithms so that it can easily recognize how people write a certain way, how they write their A's, how they write their B's. So if you don't want that information going, then you can turn that off as well. You also can manage Microsoft advertising other personal information by clicking here, and then I think it's going to tell us. Come on. Well, that's not responding. But anyway, that would give you more information. Well, there it is. I have to wait for a few minutes. That will give you information about how Microsoft is using that information about the ads. Where can you learn more about advertising on Microsoft websites, etc., and what choices that you have about interest-based advertising. So reading that information will probably give you a little more insight as how they are using that information. Under location, is another one. It says if this setting is on, each person who signs onto this device can change their location settings. If it's off, for everyone who signs in. So location, again, is used to determine how certain applications within Windows 10 can serve you better. So if that's something that's not a concern of yours, that you don't want them to happen, then you can turn that off. Because if I was to go here and say, for instance, I want a particular restaurant, I'll have to turn back. Turn this back on. Okay. All right, so if I was to say I wanted to, I know there's, I want pizza. So I'm going to type in Marco's Pizza. Okay, do you see right here this word bouncing circle is? That's Cortana telling me where the closest locations of the pizza place is to my house. So if I click that, then it's going to tell me the location that's nearest to me. But the only way that's going to work is that Cortana has to know what your physical location is. Let's see. Okay. Looks like she's not working, but under better circumstances, a map would come up and it would tell me exactly where the location of this pizza place was. So under location, to prevent that from happening, you can turn that off. And also, you can also clear the location history if you like. When location is on, location obtained to meet the needs of your apps and services will be stored for a limited time on the device. Apps that have access to these stored locations will appear below. And so I can clear the history. Now, if you notice here, I can choose the apps that can use my location. For instance, I have Bank of America. I have it on because I want to know where the nearest Bank of America is on. If I go to their website and I need to find that information. Now, for the desktop computer, it's probably not really necessary, but if I had a tablet and I was traveling and I wanted to have a need for that, then I would want that turned on. The camera. A lot of people have concerns about the fact that when the camera takes pictures, it will also give the latitude and longitude information of where the picture was taken. So if you don't want that, you can turn that off. Cortana, as you say, location history must be on for Cortana to work. So the location is very critical to Cortana. If you don't want Facebook to have that information, you can switch those off. Now that's all under privacy and in the location tab. For our camera, we can also tell which apps can use the camera and which can't by just switching those on and off. Now, a lot of these are on by default, so you will have to go in and individually change the settings for that information. So again, how to get to that is under the Start menu, go to Settings, and then click on the Privacy button, and then you have the list of the various applications and hardware that you can turn different aspects of that on and off. So we have the microphone, we have speech and inking, which we had talked about earlier. Getting to know you. Windows and Cortana can get to know your voice in writing to make better suggestions for you. We'll collect info like contacts, recent calendar events, speech and handwriting patterns, and typing history. So turning this off also turns off dictation and Cortana and clears what this device knows about you. So if you click Stop Getting to Know Me, then that essentially kills any aspect of them knowing, or Microsoft knowing exactly what your habits are. Under account information, let apps access my name, picture, and other account information. Some apps need access your account info to work as intended. Turning off an app here might limit what it can do. So that's a judgment call. So if you still feel uncomfortable with that aspect, then you want to turn that off as well. Under contacts, choose apps that can access contacts. Now, within Windows 10, all our contacts are located under an app called People. And this is the repository for all the individuals that you have made contact with, including social media. So some of these ones that you find here may have come about through Facebook, Skype, and maybe you don't want those to use in that way. So in that instance, then you will want to turn some of these off if you don't want these particular applications to be able to access your contact list. But as you see, I have mine on because I do use the mail and calendar. In other words, if I want to type an address, then I will need to be able to go into my mail account, and when I do new mail and I type someone's name, I will want it to appear. Now, if I turn that off, that will not happen, because this application will no longer have access to my contact list. So you have to be kind of selective when you are turning these switches on or off. But again, it's a judgment call. If you memorize, if you only send things to a few people and you know what the email address, then maybe that's not important to you. And the same for Microsoft Messaging. If you use that, then you might want that turned on rather than off. Your calendar, mail and calendar, you might want your apps to access your calendar. Now, one that you may want to use is Google. Now, Google contains a calendar. So when I am actually entering something in here, it can go over and cross-check or kind of insert some of that information in because it's in my contact list. I'm trying to think of one good example. So if I have something that's here, then maybe I need to have this turned on in order for, let's see, I'm trying to think of a good example. Well, at the moment it escapes me, but you have a choice of turning that on or off. Call history. email, and it tells you which ones can access and send email. And in this case, it's mail and calendar. So under privacy, you have a lot of choices that you can go through and make changes. Now, if you sync between two devices, say for instance you have a tablet and your PC, then this has to be turned on for it to work. But if you don't want that to happen, you don't want your tablet to be synced with your PC, then this would be the place where you would turn that off. And you also can choose the apps that can sync with that device. Are there any questions at this point? Hello?
Yeah, well, no one can hear you but the panelist.
Oh,
okay. Okay, so as I said, we did have one question so far was somebody has set up Cortana, but they have the wrong address in. So how would they change the address?
They have the wrong, that means physical address?
Yeah, I mean, in other words, you talking about that they set up Cortana and Cortana knows your address.
No, not your address, they knows your location.
Well, location.
Okay.
Well,
so,
what happened if it knows the wrong location?
Well, you can go in and change it. Let's see. Under settings. That's a good question.
Bill, as I said, if you didn't know, tell him. We'll get an answer and email it to him.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's go on. All right. Now, under accounts, one of the things about privacy, of course, is your Microsoft account. And a lot of us sign in as administrator just by default, because when we first set up our Windows 10, we set it up using our Microsoft account. So under that, that's our billing info, our family settings, subscription, security settings, etc. So if we go here and manage the account, it tells us quite a bit, because when we sign in, it unlocks everything that has to do, it applies to multiple devices. So when you sign in, everything's running really slow today. I'm not sure why. But what I'm getting at, what we must be aware of, is that our Microsoft account opens up a multiple things. It's used to access our Skype account, it's used to access our OneDrive, etc. So one of the things that you can do is, rather than use your Microsoft account, or at least be logged in that way, once you log in, you can go in and change that by signing in with your local account instead. So in order to do that, is that you would go to Accounts, and then you'll see here where it says Sign in with a local account instead. And you have to enter your current password, that's your Microsoft account, and then do Next. And then you actually switch to a local account. Enter the following information. You'll sign into Windows with a local account from now on. If you sign into Windows with a PIN or Windows Help, you must set up a password to continue using them. So if you have problems or do not want to sign in as administrator all the time, you can do this by creating a local account, and this one it would be Will, and then I would put my password and then re-enter my password and give myself a hint and then go next. And then from now on, every time I logged in, I'd be logging in with the local account. But now remember, when you do that, that's going to limit you access to certain features within Windows. So you will probably have to be going back, switching back and forth in order to do certain things. And one of the things I think that it will prevent you from using is the Microsoft Store. So that's just an option. I have not set it up, but it can be done. And you can do it by going to accounts and then clicking sign in with a local account instead, rather than, as you see now, I'm signed in as being the administrator. And so that allows me to do a lot more, such access my billing info, family settings, subscriptions, security setting, etc. And I was trying to get to the account, but it's not allowing me to do that. Oh, there we go. So as you notice, that when you are in using your Microsoft account, it shows you all the information that you have under that account. Your name, your email address, your payment options for the subscriptions that you might have used, such as your Office 365, and any things that you've actually purchased under that. So just keep that in mind, that your Microsoft account allows you to find all that information. And if you don't want that accessible to anyone that's using your PC, then you might want to have folks sign in as with a local account, and then they won't be able to access this information. All right. Under update and security, I don't believe we have anything that's really other than the fact that we have cloud-based protection, which gets better, fast protection by sending Microsoft information about potential security problems within Windows Defender's Find. So that's another one where it's actually talking to Microsoft. But I'm not so sure if we really want to turn that on or off, because if you're using Windows Defender as your antivirus, then you'll probably want that relationship to continue. So I would not, and I'm using Windows Defender, so I would not necessarily turn that off. And again, Microsoft issues a privacy statement as to what they're actually doing with that information. So what they will say here is Microsoft collects many kinds of information in a variety of ways to operate effectively and provide you the best products, services, and experiences. We may combine this data with information that is linked to your user ID, such as information associated with your Microsoft account. So when you acquire, install, and use program software and services, Microsoft collects information about your use of the software and services, as well as about the devices and networks on which they operate. Example of data we may collect include your name, email address, preferences and interests, location, browsing, search, file history, phone call, and SMS data, device configuration and sensor data, voice, text, and writing input and application usage. For example, when you use or install or use program software and services, we may collect information about your device and applications and use it for purposes such as determining or improving compatibility, e.g., to help devices and apps work together. When you use voice input features like speech to text, we may collect voice information and use it for purposes such as improving speech processing to help services better translate speech into text. Now, as you notice, that's just the standard privacy statement that they have attached to all areas where they are actually collecting information. So where we actually saw that was under where it was talking about cloud-based protection, and they issued this privacy statement. Well, that's the same thing for almost all of the ones that they're actually using information or collecting information about you. Now, supposedly, you know, they're not, will not be sharing any of this information with anyone. But again, as I said, it's a judgment call on your part of whether or not you want to allow that. But as it says, in order for a lot of the features to work, then some of that information will have to be, I mean, a lot of those features will have to be turned on to allow that sharing part. Now, what I've been told is that a lot of this has come about is due to the fact that we have now become more aware of how our information is being collected, and that this information here has always been in almost all the user agreements that we've had when we install software, that we allow certain aspects of it to be collected.
Jim, you got about 5 minutes.
So it's kind of a catch-22. In order for us to have better software and better hardware, we need to be able to allow certain aspects of that to be shared. Because remember, these manufacturers are trying to produce hardware and software for hundreds and hundreds of customers, and everyone's PC is different. Everyone's use is different. So in order to get a good cross-section, then information has to be gathered, has to be analyzed, so that a product can be developed that is usable to us all. And whether you agree or disagree with that, I mean, I can't argue on that point, but I'm just saying that it's something that we probably are going to have to begin to understand and begin to accept and live with.